Welcome to this week's episode of Success in Women. I'm Linda.
And I'm Andrea.
And we're here to talk about public speaking. The fear that a lot of people have. But before we get started on that, Andrea's got a tip of the week for you.
Yes, so my tip this week is whenever you're using tape, it's so frustrating when it glues itself back to the roll and you can't figure out where you've been, especially when you're wrapping gifts or doing something with masking tape or painter's tape. So my tip is to use either a paper clip or on loaf of breads, they have the bread tabs and they usually have a little sticky part to it. So if you put either the paper clip or the tab on the end of the tape where you've last used it, when you go to use it again, you'll know exactly where to start.
That's a great tip, because I always have problems, and with my nails, it's always difficult for me to actually, when I do find the line, actually get it. Anyway.
Peel it, peel, yeah.
Anyway, public speaking. And one of the things, Andrea and I were talking about this, and she was saying, she really wanted to do a topic on that because, like a lot of people, she's got a fear of actually getting in front of a large group of people and actually having to present something. And sometimes in life, if you want to get ahead, sometimes you have to put yourself out there. And that might be at your work, giving a presentation to a group of your colleagues. It's very scary for a lot of people.
It is.
But one of the things that you have to understand is that most people are not born public speakers. And I said to Andrea, really, she's very comfortable talking to you. And I said, well, what would be the difference? And she said, well, for one, she goes, you're beside me, and she just feels a little bit more comfortable knowing that if she screws up, there's me too to be, kind of in there with her. But the fear of actually having to do that by herself, she said she can do it in small groups, like if she was at a wedding to say thank you, or, at church to do a reading, whatever. But in a large crowd, she wouldn't be as comfortable. And I told her, because, we don't know how many people are watching this video. It could be a few, could be hundreds, could be thousands, it could be millions if we were so lucky. But anyway, the point is, so we could be talking to a lot of people, and she does that very comfortably. And she does that because she feels I'm the security blanket. And for a lot of us, and me included, I had a major, major fear of public speaking. And now just put me up on stage, give me a topic and I'll talk about it because I love it. And if you know some entertainers, they're really old, and I'm going to say almost past their past due date. It's because they love the feeling when they're talking live to a group of people. They feel your excitement and your adrenaline, and they get more pumped, and they feel like they have even more to give. And you get that with practice. And
Right.
So what happened with me, and I find actually smaller groups are harder to talk in front of, and especially groups of people I know. I feel more comfortable talking to 1,000 strangers than I might be to talk to, I'm going to say, a group of my colleagues. And the reason is because I don't feel that I'll be judged the same way I might be with people who know me.
Right.
But what happened with me is when I was in college, because I knew the importance of public speaking way before I ever had to do it. And they offered a course in college in my program, and I signed up for it. And we had to present to our classmates, and that was really scary. But one of the things that, the teacher encouraged us to do was to go home and practice with your family. Well, the only family that I was married at the time going to school, so I practiced in front of my husband. He did not want to be there as the audience. But I said, I have to practice in front of somebody because I needed to know that people were actually there and listening. Do you know that I found that more difficult than any presentations I've ever given throughout my life was to practice in front of my husband, because I knew he was sitting there judging me.
Right.
And I didn't feel, I'm going to say, encouragement, because he didn't want to be there. He didn't want to have to, listen, because this was kind of homework for me. And he felt that he could do a lot of other things that he would prefer to do than to help me through the fear of speaking. Anyway, but I made him do it regardless. And when I had to do it in class, I practically felt like I was going to throw up or pass out.
Yes.
Do you know, for years, even though I would get up and do it, I had this nervous stomach. I was like, oh my God. But as time went on, it got easier and easier and easier to do. But one of the things that happened to me is I ended up getting a job working in HR. Back when I did it in the federal government, it was called personnel. And we had to induct a lot of people, hundreds of people at a time. And so what we would do is we'd take them in on a weekend, and we had to go through all the paperwork that they had to complete. There was no way we could do the task one-on-one. So we would get them in a cafeteria, and somebody would have to go up in front of the microphone and walk them through the process of how to complete their paperwork. And in our department, in the personnel department, we all had to take our turn and go and do it, because every one of us were afraid to get up in front of hundreds of people at a time and actually speak.
Right.
But because I wanted it so bad, because I knew that at some point in my life, I didn't know when or where, but I knew I would have to use public speaking, I thought, I want to do it. So every time it wasn't my turn, I would find out whose turn it was, because we did this over a period of weeks. I would find out and ask the person, if you don't want to do it, I'll do it for you. And they always gladly gave me the opportunity.
Wow.
What they didn't realize was that every week I was getting practice. And even though I was nervous, one of the things that somebody had told me along the way was that, Linda, what you're telling them, your audience, is not something they know. You know, but they don't. And so I started to feel more comfortable, like they're not there to judge me. They're there to listen, because I'm there to help them to do what they need to do in completing this paperwork so they could have a job.
Right.
And all this time I kept thinking, like, I'm not good enough to be up here. I don't know enough.
Right.
I'm not, and I was definitely not confident enough to be talking in front of a big audience. But do you know that every week when I did this, and we did this for a number of years, because we worked in a department where we had to hire people seasonally every year. And so I knew the process was going to happen again and again.
Right.
And because I kept volunteering, after a while, they just didn't expect to go up there. They just let me go.
Wow, that's great.
And it was because when I finally left doing what I was doing at the federal government in personnel, there were times when I actually had to get up and make presentations in front of groups, because I got into sales. And sometimes in sales, it's not a one-on-one. You're actually inviting a lot of people, and you're giving them a message that you want them to hear. And it's kind of like, okay, if you are not good and confident at selling yourself, because technically anything that we do when you're talking coaching or whatever, you're selling yourself. And so you have to come across to your audience, which means you have to relate to them. And the more that I practiced, the more confident I felt. Now, I would, before I got on stage, I would always go to the bathroom. I can't even tell you, probably 5 times, because I just felt so nervous. I thought, oh my God. But it was like, I'm not sure. It's just that I needed to do that. And then eventually, I started feeling comfortable in the message that I was trying to, pass on and share. And that information that I was very comfortable in talking about made it so much easier. And when you think about, Andrea, when we come here week after week, and you're talking to the audience here, you can picture that we've got millions of people that are listening to something they may never have heard before.
That's true.
And how can you serve that many people? You can't do your message one-on-one and and have a bigger impact on people if you're just comfortable only in that one-on-one setting.
Right.
And so sometimes you have to put yourself outside your comfort level because you have a message that you want to share.
Right.
And the public speaking is something that you can overcome, that fear, because they say fear is false evidence appearing real. What are you afraid of? Do you think you're going to have a heart attack on stage? Do you think you're going to die? Do you think you're going to freeze up?
I think that's more what it is, making a mistake. Like I said, I've gone up in front of, people as far as the weddings, the confirmations and first communions, thanking everybody for attending. And I've done multiple church readings at weddings. And I have to say, just thinking about getting up there, like you say, the stomach is just turning. And I'm like, okay, calm down, you'll be fine. And I get up there and like you say, you're afraid of stumbling or making a mistake or freezing. And that's why, it's good to have the readings in front of you or the speeches. And you would do it. And I've had people say to me after, wow, you're really good up there. You don't have any fear. And I'm thinking, oh, you have no idea. But if I try to calm myself when I'm up there so that I can get through it, but I feel like my voice is trembling and I'm thinking, oh, everybody probably thinks I'm, an idiot or something up there. But no, it's not the way. You make up these things in your mind that aren't even real.
And I like the fact that you mentioned that, because everybody makes these things up in their mind, but the audience are thinking you're coming across confident, and they're thinking, boy, I wish I could do that.
I know.
Because most people have that fear of public speaking. And really, if you know what it is you want to talk about and you stumble, you are human. You can just find a way to get yourself back, and maybe that's what you practice when you're actually doing your speeches. One of the things that Zig Ziglar, he's been passed away a long time, and he was really a great sales trainer and motivator, used to say, record yourself.
Oh,
one of the things that I had to do was get used to listening to my own voice, because that's the other thing that people are self-critical about. They don't like the way they sound.
Right.
But what it sounds like to you is not necessarily what the rest of the world is thinking it sounds like.
Right.
And we have to get over that if you want to actually do public speaking, and just keep practicing and listening. And all of a sudden your recordings are going to be, holy crap, that was pretty good. And that's from yourself. Yeah. The highest critic you have is yourself. Mm-hmm. Because even when you're criticizing all your other takes, most people won't even notice that. I'm at a point now, and it's unfortunate in one way, when I am public speaking or when I'm sitting on the sidelines listening to people, I'm thinking that a lot of people, I'm glad that they're up there, because I always give people credit for going up on stage. But the only thing that I would comment on is that maybe you should still be recording and listening to yourself, because a lot of times what people do when they get on stage is they have fillers. And what I mean by that is they will constantly say and ah. And it takes away from the message. And they may have a good message, but for people like me, I start counting the ums and the ahs because I'm being distracted. That's exactly right, Andrea. I get distracted. And again, I always give people credit, because I think it takes a lot of courage to get up on stage and be able to talk. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll be. And a lot of people who do these big presentations, they say they still get nervous when they're going to go on a crowd. But once they get in and the crowd embraces their message, they get right into it and they forget about being afraid. Right. They just have something they want to share.
And I think that's when you see a lot of comedians on stage, that has to be the scariest thing to do as a comedian, get up and get response. And I remember a comedian talking about it once, saying, when I come out, and I get that first laugh. That's all I need to calm and feel comfortable, but people need to show their appreciation for the comic as soon as they can, so that it put them at ease, and you'll enjoy the show much more. I don't know how they do it. I often thought about getting up there and doing a comedy act, but I know I couldn't do it. I'd freeze.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that. And so for the comedian, they need to find that right opening line in order to engage the audience.
Right.
When you're doing a public presentation, in most cases, if you have, again, something like a story, and you start off with that story, especially something personal, the audience will all of a sudden warm up to you. They'll feel better about, they know a little bit, connecting. That's a good thing. They'll feel a connection to you. And that's what you want to give sometimes to your audience, is that, who are you? Why are you even up there? And if you're able to share something about yourself and your story and your why, what made you want to get up and share this?
Right.
You've got something already that the audience already feels like they know you.
Yeah.
And now it's like on the edge of their seat. They want to know more. They want to hear.
When I listen to some of the podcasts and speakers out there on online, that's what a lot of them do. They tell personal stories. They get you, they grab you right away, and you're thinking, oh, so they're like me, or that's interesting.
That's it.
I want to know more about that. And then you stay focused on them.
But I love the fact when you said that, because a lot of people feel the same way you do. We all think we're different and unique, and we are in many ways, but we all have similarities in the sense of fear and everything else. And it's kind of like, if you're sharing a story about what you've gone through, then people can relate and say, well, that's happened to me as well.
Right.
And all of a sudden they feel connected.
You're not alone.
You're not alone. And now you feel like you're just talking to one or two people, even though you may be talking to thousands.
Right.
And it's a thing of practice. It's just a thing of practice. If you're not comfortable, like most people aren't, just practice.
Yeah, it's a great accomplishment to be able to get up and speak in front of a lot of people. I mean, whenever I've gone to different functions and speakers are up there, I think, wow, I wish I could do that.
And one day you will.
Yeah. Okay.
And you'll be saying, I've arrived.
Thanks,
made it
Linda.
through. Yeah. Well, it's, you can thank somebody for helping you, but you do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
We all have to do that at some point, and you can do that, ladies. And, practicing in front of the mirror, practicing with a tape recorder and listening, practicing with your kids if you have them, and then even ask for feedback. It may or may not be something you can use, but maybe it is something.
Especially the fillers, like you say.
Yeah.
I'm sure most people don't even realize that they're doing it.
Yeah.
Or they'll say
yes,
like, or yeah, I'm sure they're not aware.
So if you have a little audience that will help give you proper feedback, or you've got the recording, either way, you're going to find out if you've been using fillers.
Right.
And if you are, that's the number one thing to try to correct. Why do you need fillers?
Exactly.
You don't need them.
I think that's a nervous tick
right.
kind of thing, don't you?
It could be. But on the other hand, Andrea, it was one of those things you said, when you find that way to connect and you have that message, the nervousness should go away. And most people, it will go away with the practice. And so it's, again, practice, practice, practice. Now, when we come up a lot, because we're talking on subjects that we feel very comfortable with, we're not doing a lot of practice in the sense of what should we mention. We'll talk about things and ideas we want to get across, but we're not doing the practice because we've done it a lot and we're both comfortable in the topics that we're choosing for you. But if you're not, or you just find that you never had to talk in front of people, because some people have a problem even talking if they have to do a presentation through Zoom. And their audience could be hundreds, it could be 5, it could be your own mother, but it doesn't matter. You have to use that audience, whatever it is, and practice.
Right.
And then whether you're I'll say behind a camera or in front on the stage, you find that thing that makes you comfortable, or that person that you can look at and try to focus that you're talking your story to them specifically, but have something about you that you can communicate to your audience, and they'll feel so much more connected. You'll feel better, and everybody's happy. And the more you do it, always volunteer it, because the more you do it, the better and more comfortable and confident you'll be.
For sure.
And you will need to use public speaking at some point in your life. If you really truly want to get ahead, you need to be able to do that. So until next week, I'm Linda.
I'm Andrea.
And we want you to
Like,
share,
and subscribe, please.
We can't do it without you.
Exactly.